Canada, it's time for a wake-up call. Looking at the polls here, it looks like Canada is leaning towards this guy, which actually looks a lot like this guy, but is probably a lot more like this guy. Let's talk about this. Ladies and gents, welcome back. We've been talking about undue influence for some time now. There's been the inquiry, the faux inquiry into Chinese interference in the Canadian elections, but where is the influence really sitting? This is where we gotta dive into this. Now, perhaps many of you have seen this clip on the internet. This is a clip of the World Economic Forum leader Klaus Schwab talking about his undue influence and penetrating the cabinets. But let's have a look at this in case you haven't seen it.
When I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
These guys want to run the world. They can't run a soundboard if you hear all that noise. But this is the reality of this situation. We're going into, and we're possibly going into, a time where Mark Carney will become the Prime Minister of Canada. And let's look at that penetrated cabinet, the cabinet that has been penetrated in this case. Well, it turns out it's not much different. Holy cow. Canadians are we got rid of Trudeau. Let's just get that liberal guy back in. But here's the case. Mark on X pointing this out. The Carney I just got here outsider filled his cabinet with 20 of the 23 members of Trudeau's cabinet. That's right. All of them. A number of them that are known to have been at the World Economic Forum, or perhaps sitting on the board of trustees at the World Economic Forum. That's right. Chrystia Freeland herself. And guess what? A number of them have been implicated in the RCMP whistleblower that talked about foreign interference in Canada, named directly Marco Mendicino, Dominic LeBlanc, Bill Blair, David McGuinty. Incidentally, the guy who wrote the NSICOP report that they're trying to get Pierre Poilievre to sign, Anita Anand, Stephen McKinnon, Melanie Jolie, Arif Virani, and of course, Chrystia Freeland, Mr. Outsider, who's Chrystia Freeland's youngest son is godfather is actually Mark Carney. But this is where we're at, and people want to bring this up, and people ask these questions, and they're joking about it. They're absolutely joking about it. Here's Mark Carney having a laugh at people's expense as they're wondering what kind of undue influence will be in the Mark Carney government if he is elected as the Prime Minister of Canada.
So it's okay. We'll get to the World Economic Forum in a moment, guys. I'm just getting just waiting, listening for the orders coming. Oh no. Some things never change. You got to move on. We got to move on as a nation.
Yes, as a nation, we need to move on. We know that there is undue influence. But what happens when the World Economic Forum actually gets control of your company? Well, let's take a little look down history. Let's have a look down memory lane here. This is Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was a bastion of what the World Economic Forum could possibly do. World Economic Forum, this is actually still on their website, an article from August 29th of 2018. Sri Lanka, this is how I will make my country rich by 2025. Hey, guess what? We're in 2025. How's Sri Lanka doing? Has anyone caught the news on that? Well, here's the deal. This is an important moment in Sri Lanka's development as the country continues to deliver on its plans for economic deployment and stands up to the cusp of transition to a knowledge-based economy. They're going to become a knowledge base knowledge. You just need to have knowledge. Here in my garage. It's unbelievable, because what ended up happening to Sri Lanka? Well, the World Economic Forum moved in and got convinced them that they needed a whole new big port. And what did they have to do to get that big port? Well, they had to borrow a bunch of money. Who did they borrow that money from? They borrowed it from China. Whoa, billions and billions of dollars to build this port that they didn't really necessarily need, because they were going to switch to a knowledge-based economy. What else did they do? They convinced them to stop using fertilizer on their number one crop. That was tea. Tea was their biggest export. And guess what? They stopped using fertilizer. They banned fertilizer. They outlawed it on the guise of saving the environment and helping the climate. And what happened there? Well, their crops failed. Their crops failed, and they went broke. They went broke overnight, and their entire country collapsed. When it collapsed, guess who was there to pick up the pieces? That's right. China was there to pick up the pieces and say, hey, you owe us a lot of money. Perhaps you can give us some of your property. That would be fantastic. What is the Liberal plan for Canada? This is where we segue into that. Liberal platform promises 130 billion with a B dollars in new measures over 4 years, adding $225 billion to the federal debt. Biggest areas include tax cuts, housing supports, and national defense. Well, we're going to get all kinds of new houses, because Brookfield is the one who's going to be building those modular houses. I guess who's going to get rich off of that one? Hey, I wonder who and who's going to be indebted. Well, the Canadian voter, the Canadian taxpayer. That's exactly where it's going to go. And you know what? We're probably going to put a heat pump in every single one of those houses. Somebody's just going to get filthy rich off this whole deal. National Post even saying Carney's Liberal platform is almost alarmingly Trudeau-esque. Mark Carney seems to embody change much better on stage than on paper. What else are we reading? There we go. Carney's Liberals are nearly identical to Trudeau's, and nothing he has offered would address these problems. Wow. Hey, Canada, looks like we're just waltzing right into another Trudeau. Is this going to be what happens? Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Do you trust the polls? Do you believe what you're seeing here? Because, wow, that does not look good. The prospects are not great if we have a Carney government moving, a fourth term for the Liberal same people, except the crown on top. That's really all that is. Better Dwelling saying Canada likely to face deep recession despite lower tariffs. Oxford Economists is saying here, at the center of the loss is reduced consumption related to the rising unemployment. Their baseline forecast expects 200,000 jobs lost in the second half of 2025, with the unemployment rate peaking at 7.7 when it hits. It's expected to cause a significant drag on consumer spending, as well as already slowing housing activity. People aren't buying houses because they don't have money to buy houses. Even with they're so inflated, it's crazy. Despite lower U.S.-Canada tariffs, we expect Canada recession to be deeper due to weaker global demand from higher U.S. tariffs on the rest of the world, explains Tony Stilo, Director of Canadian Economics at Oxford Economics. Now, a lot of Canadians are looking at this like a lot of, I guess, boomers are like, hey, elbows up, keep them prices high. Well, the younger generation is looking at things different. Here's Demani, who's out there asking Canadians all kinds of questions. One gentleman here.
All you old people out there, I want to buy a house. Vote, and don't vote for Carney.
Don't vote for Carney. That's what the young generation is hoping. The ones that are still sticking around, well, the ones that will stick around, but it's not going to help you much over there in Boomerville if you've got property. Having a Carney government is not going to be great because they're going to siphon it out of you. It's like getting blood from a stone, isn't it? The next Liberal tax may be on the roof over your head. That's right. They're looking to tax your equity. They're going to tax your everything. They're going to tax everything they can get out of you. This is the thing. There's a hard truth that Canadians need to wake up to, especially homeowners. The government is broke and they're coming for it. They're coming for all of it. Now, what would happen if Canada turned into a Sri Lanka situation? Well, Canada would largely be beholden to the people that they're indebted to. Now, here's where Donald Trump might come in. We don't know. Now, if you want to keep your sovereignty, you probably want to stick away from this sort of approach. But nonetheless, this is the reality of the situation.
Donald Trump does more press media interviews than any president in the history of the United States. Pierre Poilievre is not talking to media. He's at his best in those clips where he rips apart dumb journalists. I don't know what's going to come in Canada, but I actually think Donald Trump now, what started off as a lark, I think he just thought Trudeau was weak and Trudeau was taking shots at him after he won the election. And so he said, hey, you're just the governor of a small state. We can do whatever. And then when he saw the overreaction, Trump just doesn't back down from a fight. And I believe that he thinks that having the Liberal Mark Carney win will lead to a quicker destruction of Canada so that it's easier to pick up the pieces. That's why I think he's endorsing Mark Carney, because nothing about Canada right now is merit-based. Nothing about Canada is about doing hard things. Our military is an absolute joke. Our criminal defense system, even though I work in it, isn't dealing with crime. Our cities are completely falling apart. We're spending more money. We probably are wasting proportionately more money than the US. We're all paying 50% or more when you add up all of the taxes. Like, why would any entrepreneur come here? Trump is actually instituting policies, if people pay attention, that will make the US 10 times stronger. He's making people proud to be part of something that's specific. It's not saying just come over here and shit on my country. Just like there's been a festival of just shitting on the best countries in the world by people who haven't made anything great in their own countries.
So what do you think might happen? Do you think Donald Trump will use this opportunity to jump in and say, hey, Canada's ripe for the picking. I don't want China to pick up the pieces. Perhaps I'll be the one to pick up the pieces. Looks like if we get a Prime Minister Carney out of this whole deal, there will be pieces. It will be in pieces, and there will be pieces to pick up. Let me know what you think, though, in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. And of course, we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.